Write 3 names for the angle. You can name an angle in several different ways. One way to name an angle is to use a number. The given angle is labeled with the number 3. So, one name for this angle is angle 3. A second way to name an angle is to use its vertex. The vertex of the given angle is U. So, a second name for this angle is angle U. A third way to name an angle is to use a point on each ray and the vertex. In the given angle, a point on the first ray is T, and a point on the second ray is V. So, a third name for this angle is angle TUV. This gives you 3 names for the angle. Find the measure of each angle, then classify each angle. A. Angle RQU, B. Angle TQU, and C. Angle UQS. To find the measure of each angle, you can use the protractor postulate, which states that the measure of an angle is equal to the absolute value of the difference between the real numbers matched with the 2 rays on a protractor. In Part A, to find the measure of angle RQU, first locate angle RQU on the diagram. Now, ray QR lines up with 0 degrees on the inner scale of the protractor, and ray QU lines up with 125 degrees on the inner scale of the protractor. So, by the protractor postulate, the measure of angle RQU is equal to the absolute value of 125 minus 0. When you simplify, 125 minus 0 gives you 125, and the absolute value of 125 is 125. So, the measure of angle RQU is 125 degrees. Now, because the measure of this angle is greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees, angle RQU is an obtuse angle. In Part B, to find the measure of angle TQU, first locate angle TQU on the diagram. Now, ray QT lines up with 90 degrees on the protractor, and ray QU lines up with 125 degrees on the inner scale of the protractor. So, by the protractor postulate, the measure of angle TQU is equal to the absolute value of 125 minus 90. When you simplify, 125 minus 90 gives you 35, and the absolute value of 35 is 35. So, the measure of angle TQU is 35 degrees. Now, because the measure of this angle is greater than 0 degrees and less than 90 degrees, angle TQU is an acute angle. In Part C, to find the measure of angle UQS, first locate angle UQS on the diagram. Now, ray QS lines up with 35 degrees on the inner scale of the protractor, and ray QU lines up with 125 degrees on the inner scale of the protractor. So, by the protractor postulate, the measure of angle UQS is equal to the absolute value of 125 minus 35. When you simplify, 125 minus 35 gives you 90, and the absolute value of 90 is 90. So, the measure of angle UQS is 90 degrees. Now, because the measure of this angle is 90 degrees, angle UQS is a right angle. A. Identify the congruent angles in the roof frame, and B. The measure of angle EDG equals 40 degrees. What is the measure of angle EFG? In diagrams, matching arcs indicate congruent angles. So, in Part A, to identify the congruent angles in the roof frame, you need to look for matching arcs. In the diagram, angle DEG and angle FEG are both marked with a single arc. So, angle DEG is congruent to angle FEG. In addition, angle EDG and angle EFG are both marked with double arcs. So, angle EDG is congruent to angle EFG. Next, in Part B, you are asked to find the measure of angle EFG. From the diagram and from Part A, you know that angle EDG is congruent to angle EFG. So, by the definition of congruent angles, the measure of angle EDG equals the measure of angle EFG. You are told that the measure of angle EDG is 40 degrees. Therefore, the measure of angle EFG is 40 degrees as well. Given that the measure of angle PQR equals 102 degrees, find the measure of angle SQR and the measure of angle PQS. To find the measure of angle SQR and the measure of angle PQS, you can use the angle addition postulate. From the given diagram, you can see that S is in the interior of angle PQR. So, by the angle addition postulate, the measure of angle PQR is equal to the measure of angle PQS plus the measure of angle SQR. In this problem, you are told that the measure of angle PQR is 102 degrees. Also, from the given diagram, you know that the measure of angle PQS is 7x minus 5 degrees, and the measure of angle SQR is 9x plus 11 degrees. Now, to solve for x, you can first combine like terms on the right-hand side of the equation. 7x plus 9x gives you 16x, and negative 5 plus 11 gives you 6. Next, you can subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. This gives you 96 equals 16x. Now you can divide both sides of the equation by 16. This gives you 6 equals x. So the value of x is 6. Now, from the diagram, the measure of angle SQR is 9x plus 11 degrees. You found the value of x to be 6, so you can substitute a 6 in for x. When you simplify, 9 times 6 gives you 54, and 54 plus 11 gives you 65. Therefore, the measure of angle SQR is 65 degrees. Next, from the given diagram, the measure of angle PQS is 7x minus 5 degrees. You can substitute 6 in for x. When you simplify, 7 times 6 gives you 42, and 42 minus 5 gives you 37. Therefore, the measure of angle PQS is 37 degrees. Ray VB bisects angle AVC, and the measure of angle AVC equals 158 degrees. Find the measure of angle BVC. To begin this problem, first draw a diagram as shown. Because ray VB bisects angle AVC, angle AVB is congruent to angle BVC. Now, to find the measure of angle BVC, you can use the angle addition postulate. In the diagram, B is in the interior of angle AVC. So, by the angle addition postulate, the measure of angle AVC is equal to the measure of angle AVB plus the measure of angle BVC. In this problem, you are told that the measure of angle AVC is 158 degrees. So, you can substitute this value in for the measure of angle AVC. Also, because angle AVB is congruent to angle BVC, the measure of angle AVB equals the measure of angle BVC. So, you can substitute the measure of angle BVC in for the measure of angle AVB. Next, you can rewrite the right-hand side of the equation as 2 times the measure of angle BVC. Now, to solve for the measure of angle BVC, you can divide both sides of the equation by 2. This gives you 79 degrees equals the measure of angle BVC. Therefore, the measure of angle BVC is 79 degrees.